This is the AB4WS radio show. Every week, bringing you the exciting amateur radio news and information happening in the greater Cincinnati, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana areas.
The AB4WS radio show can be found on the Apple Podcast app or your favorite podcast application. On August 22nd, the Boone County Emergency Management conducted a simulated emergency disaster exercise with over 20 participating agencies, along with the Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky. The exercise went extremely well, and the Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky was recognized for the great job done by the group. The Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky had Todd, KY4TS, and Tim, W4TWL, at the EOC, handling communication between the EOC agencies and the Amateur Radio Emergency Team trailer, which was manned by Fred, W0NKY, which was set up off-site and handled feeding Boone County EMA pre-scripted scenarios to the Amateur Radio EOC team. Jack, AB4WS, ran a check-in net on the 147.375 K8BIG repeater, taking check-ins and handling communications from the EOC and the emergency trailer to the check-in participants. Here's what the net sounded like. This is KY6ET, the Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky. From now till noon, this repeater will be utilized by the Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky to conduct a simulated emergency disaster exercise along with the Boone County Emergency Management. This is not real. This is a drill. This exercise is a multifaceted exercise. This exercise has three components. First is the component that it will consist of KY4TS and W4TWL, who are located at the Emergency Operations Center in Boone County. They will be coordinating traffic in and out of amateur radio with the Emergency Operations Center, coordinating with other agencies that are located at the Emergency Operations Center. The second component of this exercise is that the Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky Emergency Communications Trailer, which is remotely set up and operated by W0NKY. W0NKY will be the conduit for ham radio operators in the field to communicate information to the Emergency Operations Center in the event this was a real emergency. In this particular scenario, Fred has been provided a scripted scenarios from the Emergency Management Agency of Boone County to feed to the Emergency Operations Center at certain times during the exercise, and also to feed information to operators in the field. Myself, AB4WS, will be operating the third component, which will be operating a check-in net on the 147.375 repeater with a 123.0 PL tone. This will provide a list of ham radio operators that, if this was an actual emergency, would have been able to participate in the event or incident. This list will be included in the Emergency Management Agency of Boone County exercise report to all the officials at B. Again, this is not real. This is a simulated emergency disaster exercise by the Boone County Emergency Management and the Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky. This is a drill. The scenario is a tanker truck carrying hazardous materials is overturned on I-75 near the US 42 overpass, shutting down all traffic on I-75 and US 42 in both directions. There is a hazardous materials cloud forming over Florence from the accident. Again, this is not real. This is a simulated emergency disaster exercise by Boone County Emergency Management and Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky. This is a drill. I will now be taking check-ins from any licensed amateur radio operator. One at a time, I will acknowledge your check-in and then advance to the next check-in. When you check in, please give your call sign phonetically, your name, and your location. With that, let's take the first check-in for the exercise.
Here is a Whiskey Delta 8, Juliet Alpha Whiskey, WDHJAW. Name is Len Burlington.
WDHJAW, we have you. KY6ET. Next participant, go ahead. If you're interested in hearing the entire edited version of the net exercise, keep an eye out on the AB4WS Radio Show YouTube channel for a future release there. If you're interested in participating in the Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky, join KY6ET Groups.io page and come to the next meeting on September 23rd at 7 p.m. at the Bethesda Community Church, 989 East Mount Zion Road in Independence, Kentucky. The Voice of America Museum is closed for some major upgrades to the electrical and HVAC system and a reorganization of the displays. The museum will be back open in October. More information, go to voamuseum.org. On August 22, 2024, Jerry Daugherty, W9FS of Indianapolis, Indiana, became a Silent Key. He was a big VHF and UHF guy and an Air Force veteran. He is also the father of Jerry, W4RXU. Our sympathy and thoughts and prayers to his family and friends. The Harrison County Amateur Radio Club, K4HSN, had a successful special event station at the Flat Run Veterans Park, where they made numerous domestic and DX contacts. Everyone had a great time, and several people were introduced to the wonderful world of amateur radio at the event. Last week, we talked about 6 new hams who recently got their licenses after successfully completing the technician class exam at the Northern Kentucky Amateur Radio Club exam session. But we were missing one license call sign. Well, this week that came in, and congratulations to Anthony Wright, KQ4UWN. If you hear him on the air, tell him congratulations. Due to the success of the W5YI Complete Renewal Service, they are launching a pilot program to help students get involved in amateur radio. There are 2 parts to the program. The first is to encourage college radio clubs to get involved in testing for amateur radio licenses. The second part is to make it inexpensive, can you say free, for a student to get a new amateur radio license. The pilot program will set up 10 college teams as W5YI volunteer exam teams to test college-age and younger students for new amateur radio licenses and upgrades to existing licenses. The pilot program will enable these teams to give the amateur exams for free, and W5YI will directly pay the FCC the $35 application fee when the exam session is submitted and accepted by the FCC. Each team is limited to 100 new licenses, and all exams must be given using exam tools as a W5YI exam session. This program will last until July of 2025. For more information on this program, contact Alan, WB5QNG, at arb@w5yi-vec.org. Jack Hedges is looking for someone who might be interested in being a co-admin for Repeater Book in Kentucky. This involves vetting repeater information, contacting the repeater owner, and other ways of confirming the repeater information. Also involves conducting occasional repeater verifications. If you are interested in helping out, contact Jack Hedges at j.hedges887@gmail.com. Amateur radio operators in the Commonwealth of Kentucky are in need of someone who is enthusiastic, energetic, forward-thinking, and willing to step out of the box with some new, imaginative, and innovative approaches to run for the position of ARRL section manager. While I think all of us have had some issues and disappointments with the ARRL, the time has come for some imaginative, innovative thinking amateur radio operators in Kentucky to come together and select a candidate who will be able to propel the ARRL Kentucky section into the future rather than living in the past. Do you know that special person? If so, talk to them and convince them of the necessity of stepping forward and applying for the nomination to the Kentucky section manager position. The future of amateur radio in the Commonwealth of Kentucky is dependent on us finding and electing that special person who has those skills to bring us forward. If you have any questions on what the position entails, please reach out to Great Lakes Division Director Scott Yonley, N8SY. The OHKYIN Amateur Radio Society will again be operating a Big Six booth at the Harvest Home Fair and need your help to volunteer for this event. The fair will be held on Friday, September 6th from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday, September 7th from noon to 11, Sunday, September 8th from noon to 8 p.m. This event is one of the most important fundraisers which allow the OHKYIN Amateur Radio Society to provide a lot back to the community. If you can assist in the event, reach out to Kitty, WATDA, at KHEVENER@fuse.net. On Saturday, August 31st, the OHKYIN Amateur Radio Society will be setting up a booth at the 1940s Day event at the Cincinnati Museum Center from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. They're looking for help in manning the booth and bringing equipment to display for the event. If you can help out with this event, please contact George, N3VQW, at GGARDEI@MSN.com. September 7th is the Ohio State Parks on the Air event from 1400 hours UTC to 2200 hours UTC. For more information, go to ospota.org. The OHKYIN Amateur Radio Society will be participating in the Ohio Parks on the Air event at the Little Miami State Park from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. using only voice communications. They'll be setting up at the Pavilion at 25 Kibbe Avenue in Morrow, Ohio, right next to the bike trail. For more information, contact Chessie, KD8OOB. September 7th is the Young's Charity Bike Ride, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., where amateur radio volunteers are needed to cover the riders in a large area from Young's to Mosinee, Ohio. If you can help out, contact Bob, N8ADO, by emailing him at n8ado@woh.rr.com. On September 7th, the Harrison County Amateur Radio Club will be hosting an all-day event for the Limestone Cycling League. Mike KN4COE will be net control and be stationary across from the Valario gas station in downtown Maysville, Kentucky. Other members will be out chasing the bikes. The Bluegrass Amateur Radio Society will hold their annual Family and Friends Picnic on September 9th at 5 p.m. at the Shiloh Park, shelter number 2. On September 14th at 1 p.m., the Brunch Bunch will be meeting at the Acapulco Authentic Restaurant, 5953 Boymel Drive in Fairfield, Ohio. The Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association will be busy in the month of September working on a couple events. First is the Lake Cumberland Air Show at the Lake Cumberland Regional Airport. On September 21st, they'll be setting up an MCOM trailer and demonstrating amateur radio to the visiting community, as well as setting up a speaker for audio for the performing pilots at the air show. Second will be on September 28th, where they'll be at the Summer Nights Cruise Corvette Summer Showcase. Again, setting up the MCOM trailer, and this year, again, running the special event station K4S. They invite anyone interested in either of these two events to reach out to Mike, KY6MM, who is coordinating these events. Both will be a great time. The Air Force Marathon is looking for a few good hams to volunteer to provide communications assistance for the event on Saturday, September 21st in the area of the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. For more information or to volunteer, email Bob, N8ADO@afm.hams@gmail.com. The third annual Summits on the Air Kentucky Campout will be held on the weekend of April 12, 2025. A pancake breakfast at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. Make your reservations now by calling 606-589-2478 at the Kingdom Come State Park, which is a primitive campground with limited running water and a privy toilets, with the nearest town in Cumberland, Kentucky. For more information, contact Michael, N4DCW.
Repeater news.
The Bluegrass Amateur Radio Society has 2 new repeaters in Lexington, Kentucky on the air. Listen out for them on 444.875 with a PL tone of 67 Hz. And for those 220 operators, use the 224.800 with no PL tone. If you're in the Maysville, Kentucky area, check out the repeaters on 145.470, 146.955, and 443.500. And don't forget the Sunday evening net. It's 8:30 p.m.
Hamfests.
September 7th is the Greater Louisville Hamfest at the Parquet Springs Conference Center, 395 Parquet Springs Drive in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. Talking will be on the 146.700 machine with a PL of 79.7. September 8th is the Findlay, Ohio Hamfest at the Hancock County Fairgrounds, 1017 East Sandusky Street in Findlay, Ohio. Talking on the 147.150 repeater with a PL of 88.5. On September 14th, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. is the Richmond, Kentucky Hamfest at the Madison County Fairgrounds, 3237 Old Kentucky Highway 52 in Richmond, Kentucky. On September 14th is the Mound Amateur Radio Association Hamfest Swap Meet at 900 Mound Road in Miamisburg, Ohio, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. For more information, contact Jason, N8CMM, at jspot1677@gmail.com. On September 22nd is the Cleveland, Ohio Hamfest at the Cuyahoga County Fairgrounds, 164 Eastland Road in Berea, Ohio. Talking on the 145.410 repeater with a PL of 110.9. September 28th is the Paintsville KY4ARC Hamfest at the Paintsville Recreation Center, 232 Preston Street in Paintsville, Kentucky. For more information, go to ky4arc.com. The Bluegrass Amateur Radio Society in Lexington, Kentucky Hamfest, originally scheduled for October the 5th, has been canceled. October 19th from 8 a.m. to noon at the Laughley Valley Fall Hamfest at the Brighton, Indiana Lions Club, 2160 Lamplight Drive in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. The Grant Radio Club has announced the return of the Georgetown, Ohio Hamfest this year on November the 9th from 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
Are you looking to upgrade your license? Do you have someone else that's interested in the hobby? Here are some upcoming exam opportunities.
The Milford Amateur Radio Club holds amateur radio testing on the third Thursday of each month at 6 p.m. at the Miami Township Civic Center, 6101 Meyer Drive in Milford, Ohio. Please pre-register at milfordhamradio.org. The Dayton Amateur Radio Association has exams frequently. For their exam schedule, email exams.w8bi@gmail.com. The Moorhead Amateur Radio Society will host an amateur radio exam session on September 5th at 6 p.m. at 99 Lake Park Drive in Moorhead, Kentucky. On September 14th at 10 a.m., the Westchester Amateur Radio Association will host an amateur radio exam session at the Voice of America Museum, 8070 Tylersville Road in Westchester, Ohio. Please pre-register at hamstudy.org/session/WC8VOA. On September 14th, the Richmond Hamfests will have a testing session around noon. Go to kn4s.com/amateur.html. On September 16th at 5:30 p.m., the Northern Kentucky Amateur Radio Club will hold an amateur radio exam session at the Bethesda Community Church, 989 East Mount Zion Road in Independence, Kentucky. You must register by emailing Mark Volstead, AI4BJ@MVOLSTAD@TWC.com. On October 12th at 10 a.m., the Westchester Amateur Radio Association will host an amateur radio exam session at the Voice of America Museum, 8070 Tylersville Road in Westchester, Ohio. Please pre-register at hamstudy.org/sessions/WC8VOA. On November 9th at 10 a.m., the Westchester Amateur Radio Association will host an amateur radio exam session at the Voice of America Museum, 8070 Tylersville Road in Westchester, Ohio. Please pre-register at hamstudy.org/sessions/WC8VOA. On December 7th at 10 a.m., the amateur radio exam session will be held at the Georgetown Police Department, 550 Bourbon Street in Georgetown, Kentucky. You must register at hamstudy.org/sessions/WX4GPS. Special thanks to this week's content contributors: KE4WA, KY4GW, WB8YYS, KD8ZLD, K9HIO, N8LAR, K4NKU.
If you have something you think other amateur radio operators in the area would be interested in, send the information or your recorded audio file attached in an email to ab4ws.radio@gmail.com.
Covering your amateur radio news and information in the greater Cincinnati, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana tri-state area. This is Jack Prindle, AB4WS in Big Bone, Kentucky.